Hello everyone, welcome to the final section titled Navigation Through the Game. In this section we will first be creating a UI camera and canvas to draw our UI. We will then look at creating the UI elements for our game. Finally we will create a main menu and transitions for the game. This video is titled Creating UI Camera. In this video we're going to look at creating the camera as well as improving the canvas to handle multiple canvases. As we saw with our controls for our game, we can't use the usual camera and canvas for the UI. This is because the camera we have for the main graphics scrolls, whereas we want our UI to remain static. To combat this, we're going to have to add functionality to define multiple canvases, as well as creating a separate camera solely for the UI. First, we're going to update the canvas class, so open up the canvas class in engine.shared. Each canvas is going to have a Z order so that the renderer knows which order to draw the canvases. This is because we want our UI to be drawn above everything else. So add a new private int called Z order. Then we need to add a new boolean for whether or not the Z order has changed. Then we need to add a property for the Z order, which gets the Z order and sets it and sets Z order change to true. Next, go to the constructor. In the constructor we add a parameter for the Z order. Then, in the body, we set the Z order. Now we're going to optimize the canvas slightly by extracting code from the draw method and placing it into an update method. We're going to add a new void called update. Add a new public void called update. Now go into the draw method. In here we're going to extract the code that reorders the drawables and updates the buffer data. So cut that and place it into the update method. Next we need to update the drawable class. Open up drawable.cs. We're going to separate the vertices generation and the indices generation into two separate methods, so that if the vertices change, we don't always define the new indices and vice versa. First, we're going to add a new boolean called indices should update. We're also going to add a property that retrieves this value. So where the vertices should update is defined, we're going to add another boolean called indices invalid. Then go to the constructors. In both of them, you need to set indices should update to true. Next, go to the update vertices method. In here we're going to remove the parameter for the offset. Then we're going to remove the call to generate the indices. Then we're going to add a new method called update indices with a parameter for the offset. And in here we're going to create the indices and set indices should update to false. We need to update text display to take into account the new indices generation. So open up the text display class. Go to the text property. In the setter we're going to check the previous length of the text and we're going to get the new length of text. Then at the end we're going to set indices should update based on if the count is the same as the previous count. If it's not, then indices should update. Now go back to the canvas class. Where we check if anything's changed, we're going to check if the list has changed or if the drawables, any of them, the vertices or the indices are invalid instead. If either of the values are, then we update the buffer data. Now go to the update buffer data method. First, before we do anything, we're going to check if any of the drawables indices are invalid. Then in the loop through all the drawables, first for the update vertices we're going to get rid of the parameter for the offset, and then delete the check for list changed. After we've updated the vertices, we're going to check if the indices are invalid or if the list has changed. And if either one of those values are true, we call update indices on the drawable with the offset. The next step is to update the renderer class to take into account the Z orders of the canvas, and to update the canvas. So in your Solution Explorer, go to the base folder and open up renderer. In here we're going to add a new method for the update. Add an internal void called update. In this method, we're first going to check if any of the Z orders have changed. If they have, we reorder the canvases and then set Z order change to false for each canvas, a bit similar to what we do to the drawables. Then we loop through each canvas and we update the canvas. Now we need to call update on the renderer, so we need to go to the base game class. Open up base game. Go to the update method. In here add a new call to the renderer to update. The last step is to add the new canvas to our game and to add the canvas to the controls. So now we need to open up the Zippy game class. In here, we're going to add a new public static canvas called UI canvas. Then go to the load content method. For the main canvas, we're going to set the Z order to 0. Then we create the UI canvas. We add a new camera to the canvas and set the position to vector2 0 and set the dimensions to the target dimensions of the renderer. We set the Z order to 1 and then we create a new shader with the vertex and fragment shader from before. Now we'll update the player controls. So open the player controls.cs. Go to where the buttons are defined. And in here, change each button to use the UI canvas rather than the main canvas. So it'll look like so. Then go to the control Z order and change the value to 0. Now let's test our code. And when you play, you'll be able to see that when the player moves, the buttons no longer move as well. We now have a UI camera and canvas. The canvas has a Z order defined so that we can draw our UI above the game.